these 2 hours, the presenters on every news channel were saying injured but expected to make a full recovery, and I have no idea why, but it made me so angry.
At 61, Princess Diana's sister has finally spoken out in a way that has left the world stunned. For decades, whispers and rumors surrounded Diana's life. The truth about her marriage, the battles she fought behind palace walls, and the painful struggles that shaped her final years. Through it all, her sisters, Lady Sarah McCorquodale and Lady Jane Fellows, remained mostly silent, carrying the weight of secrets that only family could know. Now, in an emotional moment that has shaken royal watchers across the globe, Diana's sister has broken down in tears and confirmed what so many had suspected all along. Her words bring a heartbreaking clarity to the questions that have lingered since Diana's tragic death in 1997. What really happened behind closed doors? What did Diana confide to those closest to her? And how has her family been forced to live with truths that the world never fully understood? This isn't just another royal revelation. It's a deeply personal confession that peels back the polished image of monarchy and reveals the raw, human pain beneath it. In her trembling voice and tearful expression, Diana's sister reminds us that the people's princess was not only a global icon but also a sister, a mother and a woman trapped in a world she could never escape. For the first time, the veil of silence has lifted. The truth, long hidden, long speculated about, is finally coming to light. And the emotions, even after more than 2 decades, are as powerful and devastating as ever. For years, Lady Sarah McCorquodale and Lady Jane Fellows carried themselves with dignity, avoiding the spotlight while the world fixated on their younger sister, Diana. They were there in the background of Diana's fairy tale wedding to Prince Charles in 1981. They stood in sorrow at her funeral in 1997, and they remained loyal guardians of her memory long after the cameras moved on. Yet behind their silence, both sisters held stories too heavy to tell. And now, at the age of 61, one of Diana's sisters has finally broken down, confirming the rumors that so many of us had only whispered about for decades. The confession didn't come with pomp or spectacle. It wasn't staged for the cameras, nor was it filtered through royal press officers. Instead, it came as a deeply emotional revelation. The words of a grieving sister who had lived through the pain, carried the burden of secrets, and could no longer pretend they didn't exist. Through tears, she admitted that the struggles Diana endured inside her marriage were even worse than the public could imagine. The rumors of loneliness, betrayal, and emotional turmoil weren't just exaggerated tabloid headlines. They were real. They were heartbreaking, and they nearly destroyed Diana long before her life ended in tragedy. According to her sister, Diana often turned to her family in moments of despair, confiding details that could never be shared with the world at the time. She spoke of feeling trapped, misunderstood, and constantly scrutinized, not only by the press but also by those within the palace walls. The glamorous photographs of tiaras and gowns told only half the story. The other half was one of silent tears, unanswered pleas for help, and a young woman fighting to hold herself together under impossible pressure. Her sister's voice cracked as she admitted something that hit like a thunderbolt. Diana had repeatedly said she feared she would never find peace within the royal system. The rumors that Diana felt like an outsider, cut off from real love and support, were not only true, they were central to her life's story. She carried the weight of the crown without ever wearing it, her sister confessed, describing how Diana bore expectations that were crushing, while being denied the freedom to be her true self. What makes this revelation so powerful is not just the confirmation of what many suspected, but the raw humanity in the way it was delivered. This wasn't a rehearsed statement. It was a sister breaking down, reliving memories that still caused her to tremble. It was a reminder that behind the myths and the headlines was a real family, one that continues to grieve not only the loss of Diana, but the pain she endured while she was alive. The world may have adored Diana as the people's princess, but to her sisters she was simply Diana, a woman with insecurities, hopes, and heartbreaks. And now, decades later, one of them has finally let the truth spill out. It's not just a confirmation of rumor, It's an acknowledgement of suffering that should never have been silenced in the first place. For years, the world speculated about the cracks in Diana's marriage to Prince Charles, but no one outside her closest circle truly knew the extent of her pain. Now, with her sister breaking her silence, those whispered suspicions have taken on a heartbreaking new reality. Through tears, Diana's sister confirmed that the fairy tale the public believed in was far from the truth. Behind palace doors, Diana was not the glowing princess we saw in photographs. She was a woman drowning in loneliness, surrounded by people but profoundly isolated. According to her sister, Diana often reached out during her darkest moments. In hushed conversations, she confided about the pressures that came with her royal role, the coldness she felt from those she was meant to trust, and the betrayal that shattered her heart. She spoke openly of her struggles with mental health, revealing that she felt trapped in a gilded cage where every move was monitored, every emotion judged, and every plea for help dismissed. The rumors about her emotional distress were not exaggerations. They were Diana's daily reality. Her sister explained that Diana's love for her sons, William and Harry, was the only anchor that kept her going through those turbulent years. She poured her heart into motherhood, telling her family time and again that her boys were her reason to keep fighting. Yet even the joy of raising them couldn't completely silence the sorrow of feeling unloved in her marriage. The very rumors that Diana knew of Charles's ongoing closeness with Camilla Parker Bowles were not just whispers in the press. They were truths Diana confided to her family in moments of devastation. Her sister recalled the tears, the rage and the despair that came from knowing her. Marriage had been broken long before the world saw it unravel. What makes this revelation so striking is the way it validates what millions of Diana's supporters had long believed. The images of Diana smiling in gowns and tiaras hid the truth of a woman crumbling inside. Her sister admitted that there were many times Diana felt she had no one to turn to within the palace. She longed for compassion, but instead faced judgment. She wanted to be embraced for who she was, but was instead molded into an image that served the monarchy. Even more haunting was her sister's admission that Diana often feared for her future. She would say that she felt like the royal family saw her more as a duty than as a person, and that she worried about how far they might go to silence her if she stepped too far outside the lines. These confessions, revealed only now by her sister, make the tragedy of Diana's untimely death even more chilling. Hearing this from her sister decades later has reignited the sorrow the world felt in 1997. It is one thing to suspect Diana suffered. It is another to hear confirmation from someone who held her hand through those moments. Her sister's words are not the recollections of an outsider or the gossip of tabloids. They are the testimony of family, of someone who saw the truth and lived with it in silence for years. And now that silence has been broken. The palace walls that hid Diana's pain have been pierced by her sister's raw confession, proving that the people's princess carried more suffering than the world ever imagined. As her sister's tearful words revealed, Diana's final days were filled with both hope and haunting signs of sorrow. To the public, she seemed to be rediscovering her independence, smiling more freely, and carving out a life beyond the strict boundaries of royal duty. But behind those radiant smiles lay a woman who was still carrying heavy burdens. According to her sister, Diana's last conversations with family members were laced with both determination and fragility, a mixture that made her final weeks all the more heartbreaking. Diana confided that she wanted to redefine her life, to finally live on her own terms. She spoke about dedicating herself more deeply to her humanitarian causes, and her sister remembers how passionate she was about using her platform to fight for those without a voice. From children's hospitals to landmine victims, Diana's compassion was boundless, and she wanted to expand this work even further. To her, this was her purpose, far beyond titles and crowns. Yet even as she embraced this new chapter, there were moments of deep unease that she couldn't ignore. Her sister revealed that Diana often worried about how her newfound independence would be received by the establishment. She was no longer under their control, and she knew that her growing popularity and bold choices would continue to unsettle those who once sought to mold her. In private moments, she admitted she feared that her every move was being watched. These fears, dismissed at the time as anxiety, now feel chilling in hindsight. The last time her sister saw Diana, she described her as radiant yet restless. Diana had spoken of the future, of wanting to give William and Harry a sense of normalcy, of wanting to show them that life could be lived authentically. But alongside her dreams, there was an unshakable sense of caution. She wanted freedom, her sister confessed, but she feared the price that might come with it. When news broke of Diana's tragic car crash in Paris on that fateful night in August 1997, her sisters were among the first to grasp the weight of what the world had lost. For them, it wasn't just the loss of an icon. It was the loss of a sister who had fought desperately to find herself in a world that never let her be. As her sister recalled through tears, the sorrow wasn't only about the accident itself, but also about the haunting knowledge that Diana had lived in fear, and those fears were never truly eased. Her sister's voice faltered as she admitted that the family still wrestles with unanswered questions. Was Diana truly safe? Was her life ever hers to control? These are the painful doubts that linger, even decades later, leaving scars that time has not erased. In those final days, Diana's determination to chart her own path shone brightly, but so too did the shadows of unease. Her sister's heartbreaking testimony brings these contradictions into sharp focus. A woman the world adored, smiling for cameras, while in private moments admitting she feared what lay ahead. It is this duality, joy and sorrow, strength and vulnerability, that makes Diana's story so deeply human. And through her sister's tears, we now see how much she carried, right up until the very end. When Diana's sister finally broke her silence, it wasn't only an act of grief, it was an act of preservation. Through trembling words and streaming tears, she explained that too much time had passed with myths and rumors shaping Diana's story. The world deserved to know what really happened, not through tabloids or speculation, but through the voices of the people who loved her most. For Lady Sarah and Lady Jane, keeping Diana's struggles locked away had been their burden for decades. But as the years went on, the weight of silence became unbearable. Her sister explained that every time she saw Diana's sons, William and Harry, growing into men, she was reminded of what Diana endured so that they might live a different kind of life. She recalled how Diana often said her greatest mission wasn't in serving the crown, but in raising her boys to be compassionate, grounded, and free to love without restraint. That, more than anything, was her rebellion against the system that made her suffer. Now, in speaking out, her sister wanted the world to remember Diana not only as a royal figurehead, but as a mother who gave everything for her children. Tears came as her sister admitted the hardest part. The people's princess had often believed she was fighting her battles alone, even when her family wanted to protect her. "We tried to help her, but the walls were too high," she confessed. "The palace had its way of shutting us out." This painful admission confirmed what many had suspected, that Diana was often isolated, even from those who loved her dearly. It was not neglect on the part of her sisters, but a carefully maintained system that kept Diana's personal struggles hidden away from public sympathy and private rescue. Still, in remembering her, her sister chose not only to highlight the sorrow, but also the extraordinary resilience Diana showed. She reminded the world that, despite her pain, Diana changed the monarchy forever. She brought warmth where there was coldness, empathy where there was tradition, and humanity where there was rigidity. From shaking hands with AIDS patients at a time of fear to walking through minefields, Diana redefined what it meant to be royal. And her sister insisted that this legacy of courage must not be overshadowed by her suffering. The decision to confirm the rumors wasn't made lightly. Her sister admitted that for years she stayed silent out of respect for William and Harry, and out of fear of reigniting wounds that never truly healed. But now, with time passing and the world still questioning Diana's truth, she felt compelled to speak. "It is not gossip," she said firmly. "It is our truth. It is her truth." And it must be remembered. Her voice, breaking yet resolute, captured the essence of what this confession meant. It was not about scandal. It was about reclaiming Diana's humanity, the real woman behind the headlines, whose laughter was as bright as her pain was deep. In the end, Diana's sister reminded us all that the tragedy of her story lies not only in her untimely death, but in the life she was forced to endure before it. And while the pain of losing her will never fade, the world can now understand more clearly than ever the woman behind the crown. The truth may have taken decades to surface, but at last it has been spoken. And it ensures that Diana's legacy of truth, love, and courage will never be silenced again.